Dear Lord, thank you so much for another glorious Sunday morning. I just can't really understand how I didn't realize how beautiful every one of these days are that you make for us, Lord. Every Sunday that I've came to church, I just admired just even if it's hot or cold, it's still beautiful, and the sun comes up and it's shining, and I just know that you're blessing this world and enabling us to be lights for you. I love telling people to just be a light, just to go out and just be a light, and that's what I pray for all of us. And I thank you for all of us that are able to be here today, and I'm thankful for you to looking over everyone that couldn't be here today. We have a lot of people that we miss, and we hope that they're doing well, and we just want you to comfort them and to make sure that they are well taken care of, and that they're in our hearts and our prayers. And for those of us that are here this morning, Lord, I hope that you allow us to open our hearts and our minds to your word and to our singing later, so that we can praise you, so that we can learn more about you, and so that we can be good stewards and just to be good lights out in this world, because we know this world is so full of darkness and so many horrible bad things happen, but that's where your army of God stands in, and we're just so thankful to be a part of that. And whenever I see these beautiful mornings, I know that we're just here to gather to learn more about you, to strengthen ourselves, to strengthen our hearts and our minds, and to provide us wisdom and understanding, so that we can go out and try to shed light over that darkness, and to lift people up who are hurting, to bring people closer to you that are lost. And Lord, we just pray that we continue your mission and what you have that you want us to do. So we thank you for your Son, Jesus, who has provided our salvation and has given us that peace, so that now we can go out and work and to do your bidding, and to be a light to others and to be good witnesses. And it's through your Son's name that I pray. Amen. So I think that we had a lot of fun reading in Joshua 10 and 11, and we started in chapter 9 last week, and we were a little few in number, but so I'll catch up those who weren't here, not last week, but a couple weeks ago. We alluded to 3 weeks ago about Gibeon's deceit, and then we read through that. So in chapter 9 of Joshua, we read about how they came over from a far land with their rent clothes and their spoiled wine and their rotten, moldy bread, and they tried to deceive Joshua. But Joshua, we were talking about how they didn't ask God, they didn't pray for it at first, and they didn't ask God to reveal it to them, so they were deceived at first. But once they came to their senses and they realized that they had been deceived, Joshua appointed those people to be bondservants. So they fetched them water, and let's see, in Joshua 9:22. Drawers of water unto all the congregation, as the princess has promised them. That's in 21. And so in 22, Joshua said that they begullied us, but there was a plan for them. In 27, Joshua made them that day hewers of wood and drawers of water for the congregation and for the altar of the Lord, even unto this day, in the place which he should choose. So once the deceit was discovered, they were not slain. So I don't know, I guess you could kind of say maybe Gideon's plan worked out a little bit for them, because, I mean, if they were opposed to Joshua and the Israelites, they would have most likely been slain along with everybody else in the land there. but they were fearful. Earlier in 9 it said, and I'm just paraphrasing, but they trembled, over the stories that they had heard of them coming and conquering, and so they didn't want to be conquered. But anyway, after Joshua and them made them bondservants in Joshua 10, 5 kings got together and conspired. And we went over that, and all of those kings got together, and they heard that the Gibeons had joined Joseph and them. And then they surrounded Gibeon and threatened to attack him. So Gibeon asked Joshua for protection, which they did. And then Joshua's conquest there at the end of 10. And then in 11, we had more kings join forces, which also led to more conquests. So if you guys haven't read that before, I encourage everybody to go back and read through that. Wonderful stories. It was really powerful to read of Joshua going through. And at this point, I believe they have pretty much conquered almost everybody. I think they, let's see, at the end of 11, it says, so Joshua took the whole land according to all that the Lord said unto Moses, and Joseph gave it for an inheritance unto Israel according to their divisions by their tribes. And the land rested from war. So at this point, we have reached the end of conquests, at least for now, in the Bible here in this land. And now in Joshua 12, we are going to pick up where the lands, there's going to be a little bit of a review. Joshua 12 kind of goes over the lands that were conquered previously by Moses, and then it's going to go over the lands that were just previously conquered by Joseph as well. So we can go ahead and read through some of those. It's a very short chapter, so I'll just go ahead and read it. And then we'll get into 13. There is actually still some lands to be conquered before the inheritances are divvied up. So in chapter 12, verse 1, now these are the kings of the land which the children of Israel smote and possessed their land on the other side of Jordan towards the rising of the sun, from the river Arnon unto Mount Hermon, and all the plain of the east, on the east. Sihon, king of the Amorites, who dwelt in Heshbon, and ruled from Aroer, which is upon the bank of the river Arnon, and from the middle of the river, and from half Gilead, even unto the river Jabbok, which is the border of the children of Ammon, and from the plain of the sea of Chinneroth on the east, and unto the sea of the plain, even the salt sea on the east. So the way to Beth Jeshimoth, and from the south under Ashdoth Pisgah, and the coast of Og, king of Bashan, which was of the remnant of giants, and dwelt at Ashtaroth and at Edrei, and reigned in Mount Hermon, and in Salcah, and in Bashan, unto the border of Geshurites and the I'm pronouncing that one really wrong, Mashathites, and half Gilead, the border of Sihon, king of Heshbon. Them did Moses, the servant of the Lord, and the children of Israel smite. And Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave it for a possession unto the Reubenites, and the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. So these were lands that were conquered by Moses that we read about before Joshua began leading Israel. It just goes through there. Lots of fun pronunciations in there for a modern English, not very well reader of this old Hebrew. But the lands conquered by Joshua is going to be described here in 7 through 24. And the kings of the country which Joshua and the children of Israel smote on this side of the Jordan. So once they crossed over the Jordan into the promised land. On this side of the Jordan, on the west, from Baal-Gad in the valley of Lebanon, even unto Mount Halak, that goeth up to Seir, which Joshua gave unto the tribes of Israel for a possession, according to their divisions. In the mountains, and in the valleys, and in the plains, and in the springs, and in the wilderness, and in the south country, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. The king of Jericho, 1. The king of Ai, which is beside Bethel, 1. The king of Jerusalem, 1. The king of Hebron, 1. The king of Jarmuth, 1. The king of Lachish, 1. The king of Eglon, 1. The king of Gezer, 1. The king of Debir, 1. The king of Geder, 1. The king of Hormah, the king 1. The king of Arad, 1. The king of Libnah, 1. The king of Adullam, 1. The king of Makkedah, 1. The king of Bethel, 1. The king of Tappuah, 1. The king of Hepher, 1. The king of Aphek, 1. The king of Lasharon, 1. The king of Madon, 1. The king of Hazor, 1. The king of Shimron, Meron, 1. The king of Ashkapah, 1. The king of Tanakh, 1. The king of Megiddo, 1. The king of Kadesh, 1. The king of Jokneam and of Carmel, 1. The king of Dor in the coast of Dor, 1. The king of nations of Gilgad, 1. The king of Tisra, 1. And the kings 30 and 1. Yes?
What's the 1 for?
So I believe that's just the old, that's in my King James. Does it say the same in New King James or NIV?
I have the King James.
So the King James, I believe that's just the way that they're saying that was just the one king of that.
That area?
Of that area, yeah. So like Jarmuth, for example, the king there. Am I right there, Jim?
You know, I've never really thought about that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I think that they're just
curious.
throwing that in there to specify that they took out the king there. I mean, because I guess it could be possible that there had been many rulers, like another ruler come after them, and they could have taken that one out too. But I believe that, and I haven't actually gone through to count, but that last verse, the king of Tisra won all the kings 30 and 1. So I believe there was 31 kings in total.
Makes sense.
But yeah, basically, this chapter 12 to me was a summary of all the lands conquered by Moses and all the kings that were conquered on would be the east side of the Jordan. So where it says the sun rising, so like towards Asia, and then the lands conquered by Joshua, because we know Moses didn't cross over the Jordan to the west side of. And then we know that the land that was the land given as a possession unto Reubenites and Gadiites and the half tribe of Manasseh. So Moses gave that land that they conquered just on the east side of the Jordan to those 2.5 tribes, and then the promised lands for the rest of the tribes are on the west side of the Jordan River, all the way to the sea, which would be modern day Israel, Gaza Strip area. So yeah, chapter 12 is just a great summary. I've noticed that a few times in the Old Testament where a lot will happen. Just a lot will happen. And then there will be a nice chapter where the Bible kind of summarizes it all for us, or kind of just a gently reminder of what happened back. And so that's what chapter 12 spoke to me as, is just kind of a little history review, because a lot did happen. And at this point, Joshua seems to be quite the leader in battle, because they have conquered many, many more kings than even Moses and them did. So at this point, at the end of 11, it says, "And the land rested from war," in chapter 11, verse 23. So then in chapter 12, it kind of goes over that. But in chapter 13, in my Bible, it kind of summarizes the first 14 verses of land still to be conquered. And so we'll read through that, and then let's see kind of what that speaks to us. 13 verse 1, "Now Joshua was old and stricken in years, and the Lord said unto him, Thou art old and stricken in years. And there remaineth yet very much land to be possessed. So there is still land to be possessed that they haven't conquered or captured yet. This is the land that yet remaineth, all the borders of the Philistines and Geshuri, from Shirah or Sihor, which is before Egypt, even unto the borders of Ekron, northward, which is counted to the Canaanite. 5 lords of the Philistines, the Gazathites and the Ashdothites, the Eshkalonites, the Gittites, and the Ekronites, also the Avites. From the south, all the land of the Canaanites and Merah, that is beside the Sidonians unto Aphek, to the borders of the Amorites, and the land of the Gibeonites, and all Lebanon, toward the sun rising from Balgad under Mount Hermon, unto the entering into Hamath, and all the inhabitants of the hill country from Lebanon unto Mespherath, Maah. And all the Sidonians, them will I drive out from before the children of Israel. Only divide thou it by lot unto the Israelites for an inheritance, as I have commanded thee. Now therefore divide this land for an inheritance unto the 9 tribes and the half tribe of Manasseh, with whom the Reubenites and the Gadiites have received their inheritance, which Moses gave them, beyond Jordan eastward, even as Moses the servant of the Lord gave them. So there it reminds us again in verse 8 that 2.5 tribes already had their land inherited, or was already claimed basically for them. But if you remember, Joshua said, even though you guys have your inheritance already on the east side of the Jordan, you guys are going to come with us across the Jordan, and you're going to help us get the land for the rest 9.5 tribes. So I thought that was interesting. It's like, no, you guys just because we conquered this and we're already staking this land for you guys, you're going to come with us and help us conquer this. At some point, I'm sure they will be allowed to go back and enjoy their land on the other side of the Jordan. But in verse 8 there, we still have 9.5 tribes that are awaiting their inheritance, their lands to be given to them. So verse 9, from Aroer, that is under the bank of the river Arnon, and the city that is in the midst of the river, and all the plain of Medeba unto Dibion, and all the cities of Sihon, king of the Amorites, which reigned in Heshbon under the border of the children of Ammon, and Gilead, and the border of Geshurites, and Maccathites, and all Mount Hermon, and all Bashan unto Salcah, all the kingdom of Og in Bashan, which reigned in Ashtaroth, and in Edrei, who remained of the remnant of the giants. For these did Moses smite and cast them out. Nevertheless, the children of Israel expelled not the Geshurites, nor the Maccathites, but the Geshurites and the Maccathites dwell among the Israelites unto this day. Only unto the tribe of Levi he gave none inheritance. The sacrifices of the Lord God of Israel made by fire are their inheritance, as he said unto them. So it appears that the Levites were the only ones that didn't receive land as their inheritance. They received the blessing of being the tribe responsible for performing the offerings or giving the offerings, I believe, to the Lord, which was stated previously, but which was brought back up again there in verse 14. So that was just a little Joshua 13, 1 through 14 is a little message there, giving us a little bit of a background of some lands that still need to be conquered. But in 7, God commands them, now therefore divide this land that they have. But then, back in 6. 5 and 6, 4, 5, and 6, basically all the way from 1 down, it speaks of these other people groups that will need to be driven out. And it says in verse 6, "Them will I drive out from before the children of Israel, only divide it by lot unto the Israelites for an inheritance as I commanded thee." And in 7, it says, "Now therefore divide this land for an inheritance unto the 9.5 tribe of Manasseh." So, in the rest of Joshua 13, we're going to get into some of these inheritances, and the first one to be noted is the inheritance of Reuben in 15 through 23 of chapter 13. "And Moses gave unto the tribe of the children of Reuben inheritance according to their families, and their coast was from Aror, that is on the bank of the river Arnon, and the city that is in the midst of the river, and all the plain by Medeba. Heshbon and all her cities that are in the plain, Dibon and Bamoth-Baal and Beth-Baal-Meon, and Jahaza and Kedermoth and Mephath, and Krijathaim, and Sibmah, and Zareth, Shahar in the mount of the valley." I tell you, I have a lot of fun pronouncing a lot of these cities and tribes in the Old Testament. So bear with me if it does not come out the way that you're reading it in your head. But I just read it the best I can and just move on, because the Lord knows that we're understanding the best of our abilities, which is very finite compared to the wisdom of God, which has written this book for us. And Beth Peor in verse 20, and Ashdoth Pisgah, and Beth Jeshmoth, and all the cities of the plain, and all the kingdom of Shihon, king of the Amorites, which reigned in Heshbon, whom Moses smote with the princes of Midian, Evi, and Rechem, and Zur, and Hur, and Reba, which were dukes of Shihon, dwelling in the country. Balaam also, the son of Beor, the soothsayer, did the children of Israel slay with the sword among them that were slain by them. And the border of the children of Reuben was Jordan, and the border thereof, this was the inheritance of the children of Reuben, after the families, the cities, and the villages thereof. So there we have the inheritance of Reuben laid out. It goes further into the inheritance of Gad, and then the inheritance of that half tribe of Manasseh, that is to finish the inheritances listed here in chapter 13. And then at the very end, it reminds us again that there's no inheritance again for the tribe of Levi as far as land, in my belief there. But in the inheritance of Gad, in verse 24, and Moses gave an inheritance unto the tribe of Gad, even unto the children of Gad, according to their families. And their coast was Jazer, and all the cities of Gilead, and half the land of the children of Ammon, unto Aror, that is before Rabah. And from Heshbon unto Ramoth Mizpeth, and Betonim, and from Mahanaim unto the border of Debir, and in the valley Beth-Aram, and Beth-Nirah, and Succoth, and Zephon, the rest of the kingdom of Zihon, king of Heshbon, Jordan, and his borders, even unto the edge of the sea of Chinnereth, on the other side of the Jordan eastward. This is the inheritance of the children of Gad, after their families and cities, the cities and their villages. So there's already cities and villages that were conquered when they came into these lands, and so they're basically saying, okay, from this border to this border, and all the cities and villages within, this is the inheritance of that tribe.
And let me ask you, so the cities that were being conquered by these tribes, who lived in those cities?
Well, that would be these people here that are listed. So some of these are the people, the names of the people, and then some of them are the cities. So, for example, so like in 21, and all the cities of the plain and all the kingdom of Zihon, king of the Amorites. So I would say that Zihon is the kingdom, or Zihon is the king of the Amorites. So you have the name of the king there, and then you have the name of the people, the Amorites, and then it says which reigned in Heshbon. That would be the place.
So Heshbon is the place that they conquered?
Right.
To take
Yeah.
over?
Yeah. So they conquered the king, the people, and the place.
And the people were the Amorites? Is that, am I?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. It is very confusing when you read through, and there's a lot of these names and words are really long. Especially, I love it when my Bible gets, my particular print of my Bible will get to where there's a hyphen, and then I have to drop down to the next line to read the second half of the name of that tribe. It gets a little, I kind of get a little lost there sometimes myself. But yeah, that's just one example in verse 21 where it lists the king. So. And all the cities of the plain, and all the kingdom of Shihon, king of the Amorites, which reigned in Heshbon. So sometimes I have to, and I'm sorry if I read through it a little fast. Sometimes I try to tell myself I need to read a little slower, because sometimes when I read that a little slower, it helps me understand. Like when I'm reading, to myself in private, I have to sometimes go back and read it 2 or 3 times. But like if you read that slower, you kind of can see Shihon, king of the Amorites, which reigned in Heshbon. So Shihon is the king, Amorites are the people that he was the king over, and the king reigned there in Heshbon. So I equate that to the place. And that's throughout. I mean, there's several verses here that are like that if you read through. So
I love it whenever they throw something in there that, it's all kind of repetitive, but then they'll throw something in there that really catches your attention, like verse 22. It says, Balaam, also the son of Beor, the soothsayer, did he the children of Israel slay with the sword. And if you go back and look, Balaam was the one that was hired by the king of Moab to put a curse on the nation of Israel.
Yes.
As they were coming up through there.
Yeah.
And so God did not allow Balaam to put a curse on there. He put a blessing on him because he couldn't say the curse.
Yeah.
But that didn't mean he was good. He was still evil. He was still a medium. God just wouldn't let him say it. So now he gets his just reward.
Oh yeah. I think it's amazing when the Bible, like you'll read a chapter, a verse, a section, and then clear into a whole nother book, verses and verses and verses later, chapters and chapters later, and then it'll circle all the way back to, remember back when this person did that?
Just a little reference.
Yeah, just one little reference. Remember that guy, the guy who did this? Yeah, that's an excellent point. Balaam, also the son of Beor. So sometimes these verses can get a little confusing just reading it verse by verse. For someone like me who is more of a visual person, I almost need a map or a whiteboard, or when those people are doing those real deep dives and they got the strings of yarn going from there to there to there. I almost need that. I almost need this whole wall. We could start from Genesis, and maybe we'll do that someday. We'll just start a big old wall all the way, and then it's like we're all the way in Joshua, and then remember this guy that was also way back here. You almost need that. I mean, the Bible is very, very complex The story is very detailed, but that's something I love about it is it won't leave out any of those details. It'll go back, and and off the top of my head, I could go back through my notes and I know I'd be able to find it, but in the sake of time, it would take me too long. But I can't remember exactly what verse and what chapter that story is in. And I don't know if you would either, but I know what I remember reading through that several weeks back.
My Bible says Numbers 22:5.
Numbers 22:5.
So,
See,
yeah.
your Bible has
It gives
that.
you the references
yeah.
after each verse.
Some
but
Bibles
you know
have
it.
that, and that's very helpful.
Well, Numbers 22:5, and then also Numbers 31:8.
My Bible does not have that, so you have a nice little helper there. But I'll go back and look at that. Numbers 22:5. He sent messengers therefore unto Balaam, the son of Beor, to Pethor, which is by the river of the land of the children of his people, to call him, saying, Behold, there is a people come out of Egypt. Behold, they cover the face of the earth, and they abide over against me. Come now, therefore, I pray thee, curse me this people, for they are too mighty for me. Peradventure I shall prevail, that we may smite them, and that I may drive them out of this land. For I wot that he whom thou blesseth is blessed, and he whom thou cursest is cursed. So yeah, that was back when Balak summons Balaam to do that. Way back in Numbers 22. That's amazing. So yeah, now we're in Joshua 13, verse 22, which is also real neat when you see those numbers line up. It's almost like the stars align. Yeah.
I have one of those reference books that talk about what they kind of summarize what each book is about.
Yeah.
And they give the references in there. It's I can't remember it. I got it from Rose Publishing, and it's just a really good book that helps kind of summarize each of the books, and it gives the references in there.
Yes.
And it's really, to me, it's really helpful.
Yeah.
Distinguish the different Bible books.
I find that very helpful for myself. I love to go and read that because I'm kind of like I said, I'm more of a visual kind of learner. I was always math and science kind of kid when I was in school, and reading was never my strongest subject. So going through and reading the whole Bible for myself from cover to cover has been a fun challenge, and I think that the Lord has kind of helped me read better through it, and so I'm actually loving this. But one thing that I do is I like to read an overview or someone's summary. Like there's several pastors that that have that stuff online. I'd be interested to hear that the name of that book, and that we could share that if you remember that and look that up and bring that next Sunday, or just bring the name so that we can share that so others can look for that book, and they could probably order it on a bookstore or online bookstore or something. But I go to some of these websites where other pastors have done that similar thing online, where they'll summarize an entire book, and I like doing that not to scapegoat the book, not to say, oh well, I don't need to read it now because I read a summary. I just like to do that just to kind of get a visual. So they'll summarize the whole chapter, but it is impossible to summarize any of these books.
Yeah, it gives the highlights
Yeah.
of each book, but it's kind of thorough to me. It seems
Yeah.
like it's thorough.
Yeah.
And then it has the references in it.
Some of them do a really good job with it, which is a tall task. I mean, to summarize. I've tried it myself when I first started going through Genesis and stuff. I summarized a lot. Now I've kind of gone through and I've actually decided to just go ahead and read through most all of it because I just feel like every verse sometimes something will pop out and stuff, and you kind of miss that when you summarize. But I like the summarizations because I can put a picture in my mind. A visual picture in my mind, like, okay, so this is the main events or some of the big highlights, as you will, like of that chapter. And then I like to read through every single verse, and then it's like, oh yeah, this is the story of what I read in that summarization. But that's really, really interesting that they come back and say, Balaam, also the son of Beor, the soothsayer, did the children of Israel slay with the sword among them that were slain by them. So that part of that land there formed the inheritance there of Reuben. So yeah, we have the inheritance of Reuben and Gad, and then we have, remember that half tribe of Manasseh here in verse 29. And Moses gave inheritance unto the half tribe of Manasseh, and this was the possession of the half tribe of the children of Manasseh by their families. And their coast was from Mahanaim and all Bashan, all the kingdom of Og, the king of Bashan, and all the towns of Jair, which are in Bashan, 80 cities. And half Gilead, and Ashtaroth, and Edrei, cities of the kingdom of Og. So see, there's an example there where it listed actual names of the cities. Sometimes it just said, and the kingdom of so-and-so. This one, it actually, see, it said 80 cities. That would be 60, right? Score is 20. So you're talking 60 cities there. The Bible, maybe to save our finite brain power, didn't list all 60 cities, but it did list some of these. So maybe those cities were the more major cities. But yeah, to your point, Angie, earlier, there's an example there in 31 where it says, and half Gilead and Ashtaroth and Edrei, cities of the kingdom of Og in Bashan. So I would say in that verse, to me, it sounds like those are the names of the cities of the kingdom of Og, who had been the king, in Bashan, which would have been the name of the overall kingdom. So you have Dallas, Atlanta, Phoenix, those are all cities in the United States who are under the president, whoever the president is at the time. That's kind of the similar thing here.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but it does kind of get confusing reading through so many of these names, and you're like, is that a city? Is that a king? Is that a kingdom? But usually every single verse will, if you slow down and read it over again, at least that's what I have to do. It'll kind of it has all the context clues to piece it all together there. But yeah, to continue in 31, which were pertaining unto the children of Machir, the son of Manasseh, even to the one tribe of the children of Machir by their families. These are the countries which Moses did distribute for an inheritance in the plains of Moab on the other side Jordan by Jericho eastward. So here it just listed the two tribes of Reuben and Gad and the half tribe of Manasseh that Moses captured this land there for an inheritance for them on the other side of Jordan, eastward. And then in 33 it reminds us again, but unto the tribe of Levi Moses gave not an inheritance. The Lord God of Israel was their inheritance, as he said unto them. So I find it really interesting. It almost word for word repeated that verse. That was earlier in the Bible where Moses stated that is their inheritance. And then here again in Joshua 13 we read that again verbatim. So and then in 14 we get into some more here, land to be divided up, and we have enough time. I'll be able to finish. We'll just read through that chapter as well. So in 14:1, and these are the countries which the children of Israel inherited the land of Canaan, which Eleazar the priest and Joshua the son of Nun and the heads of the fathers of the tribes of the children of Israel distributed for an inheritance to them. By lot was their inheritance, as the Lord commanded, by the land of Moses, for the 9 tribes and for the half tribe. So now we're going to get into the inheritances. So 14 is going to kind of summarize some of this, and then we also have a request by Caleb. But then in 15, it's going to start going through all the rest of the tribes. So the other 9.5 tribes in 15 and in 16, and I believe it goes into 17 and 18 as well. So 19 also. So yeah, we have several chapters here coming up that are all going to list different inheritances for different tribes. But I'll keep going at verse 2. By lot was their inheritance. No, I read that one. So 30. For Moses had given the inheritance of 2 tribes and a half tribe on the other side of Jordan. But unto the Levites he gave none inheritance among them. For the children of Joseph were 2 tribes, Manasseh and Ephraim. Therefore they gave no part unto the Levites in the land, save cities to dwell in, which their suburbs for their cattle and for their substance. So it says that they gave no part unto the Levites in the land, save cities, which to me, I don't know if other versions of the New King James or NIV kind of say that differently, but that basically tells me they had no land as an inheritance, but they did have cities that were given that they could dwell in, because they had to live somewhere, right? Does that kind of sound the same to you in your head?
I'm wondering if that's the city of refuge. You know,
Yeah.
there are certain cities of refuge, and
And
the priests actually were in control of those cities, because if somebody accidentally killed somebody, then they would go to those cities as refuge.
mhm.
They could not be killed if they were in that city of refuge. But even if you killed somebody accidentally, the family members could execute justice on you and kill you, because you accidentally killed one of their family members. But if they went to that city of refuge, they had a trial, and the priest would decide whether they were innocent or not, and they could stay there without being hunted down by the family members. Isn't that a weird system?
Yeah.
It's so weird.
But I think it's amazing they had a system. So
But it is. God thought of everything. But
Yeah.
it's interesting that they would have to stay. They were free to leave after the high priest died, which is the picture of Jesus. You're free
Yeah.
after Jesus dies.
in a time so long ago, they had that system established that sometimes when reading this almost makes it, to me, I almost feel like sometimes their system was maybe a little more figured out than some of our systems in the
It was
world
more
today.
practical.
Yeah,
There's no question
I
about
mean,
that.
some of it is pretty cut and dry. You know, some of the consequences were pretty harsh or dire, but I
But
mean,
look at-
today there's still that. I mean,
But look at today, some of the punishment is not harsh enough for the crime, and, you know, it's not, the judicial system.
yes, yeah.
Needs to be-
What I think today is, what's confusing is 2 people can do the same thing, but one person gets a completely different charge, and somebody else can be completely pardoned.
Right,
And that's,
So it depends on the judge, right?
yeah,
Depends
so,
on where you
or
live.
the lawyer.
Or the lawyer. That's
You know.
right. Uh-huh.
How much money you have.
That's right.
Yeah.
yes,
See,
back
that's
there.
why I like the Bible, because the thing is that the more I've like delved into it and tried to study it, it's basically because I've been reading a book called The Attributes of God, and I was trying to find out the decrees of God, and the decrees is the whole book. That's the commandments, everything. It's the whole book. So I'm over here trying to pick out little pieces and stuff like that. But His law is perfect.
Yeah.
His law is perfect. So you're right about. I agree with you on what you said, that they had it a lot better back then on how to manage that than we do today.
Yeah. Well, I just think today the world is really confused. I think we're just very, very confused. And sometimes things are are just and right, but then there's a lot that gets lost. Did you have something you wanted to share?
No, it's just all the mannerisms of people and the, the things people just, it's hard for them to concentrate because there's so much going on.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's those conditions, and
Right.
It's like the world
Harder.
is spinning out of control.
Yeah. 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 They had a really solid rule and foundation and system, and in this day and age, it's just I think they started with a law and maybe it was pretty good, but then they're like, oh no, we need to change that. No, we need to throw that part out. No, we need to add this. No, we need to, and now before you know it, you have a library full of books, and they're like, this is the whole, and then. That's, I guess when you're a lawyer today, you have it cut out for you because you can just pick and find, oh, well, in section this, article 10 of 15 of this, and blah, blah, says this. And, no wonder judges have it hard these days because they're just like, well, I guess that book does say that, or that law book does say that. But how many contradictions does that create?
From a practical standpoint, it was much easier back then because so much of the criminal justice system was administered by the families.
Mm-hmm.
So if your family thought you were innocent, then you were innocent.
Yeah.
If your family thought you were guilty, they were the ones that administered the punishment. So they're more likely to be fair, I suppose.
Right.
I don't know if it's always that way, but it's just the way it was.
Yeah.
And you didn't have people locked up for 10 years before they even go to trial.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Or even like with the death penalty, back then it was like if you were gonna be put to death, it was just done.
If the family decided you were guilty, it was done.
Yeah, they didn't wait 20 years for all these appeals to go through before you finally got put to death. Yeah, that's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do agree that it is very, very interesting of how well the Bible had this stuff laid out, even far back in time compared to today, and everybody likes to think that we're so advanced and so we got everything figured out today, and to me, I'm like, that couldn't be further from the truth. It just seems like we're getting more and more lost, really, more and more confused. But that's why I think the Old Testament is really powerful to keep. And some people only like to look at the New Testament today or different parts of that. But I think that it's fun going back and reading through all this because there's so much in the Old Testament that still can apply to today. That
kind of gives you a fresh perspective.
Yeah.
But did you know that the word Joshua is the same word in Hebrew as Jesus?
Really?
So Joshua means Savior, Jesus means Savior, and so there's a definite correlation there. Joshua is a picture of Jesus who comes to set up the kingdom on the earth.
Right.
Conquers all of the enemy nations and sets up a rule of justice and righteousness, which is what Joshua did.
Right.
Leading up to the kingdom of David.
But
Yeah.
Joshua, was he the one that would not go to the promised land?
No, Moses.
That was Moses, okay.
Joshua kind of took over
Yes.
Moses.
Yeah, he was appointed by God to carry on.
Again, Moses is a picture of the law. The law can't get you into the kingdom. Joshua is a picture of salvation. Believing. They went in by faith.
Yeah, wow, that's a powerful
That's
thought.
a message, isn't it?
Yeah, it really
Strong
is.
faith.
Yeah.
And even as many times as God helped them in those battles, they still, kind of lost faith at times,
Yeah.
But like when he sent down the hail
Yeah.
and he took out more of the enemy than their own sword, they said.
That was what we went over a couple weeks ago.
And yet none of their people were killed by the hail, only the, enemies. And I think it's really through those battles a lesson of, if God be for you, who can be against you?
Totally.
Now, Jim, I'll bring up this one point and then I'll end there. So we'll pick back up in 14 next week, and we'll go from there. This is a great stopping point because I think 14 kind of sets up things, and then we'll get to Caleb's request. But 2 weeks ago, we went over the part where Joshua commands the sun to stand still.
Oh, I
And
missed that. didn't
isn't
I?
that a fascinating thing to kind of ponder and wonder about? And we had some questions around that, I think. Me and Lanny and Angie kind of went back and forth over that, and we were like, man, I wish Jan and Jim were here so that we could kind of ask them to give us a little bit of their thoughts on that. So maybe next week, if you go back and read that, it's in Joshua 10,
Okay.
12 through 21.
Okay.
So if you'll go back through there and look into that for us, maybe you could give us a little pointer on that, because it says that that's the first and only time that's ever happened in history, and we were wondering if that had to be so that God could finish helping them conquer this or whatnot. We're a little confused on there, so maybe we can get your guidance on that. And then also, it mentions a book, the Book of Jasher. And that was right there in Joshua 10. Let me find the exact verse here. In verse 13, so 10:13, it says, "And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, unto the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is not this written in the book of Jasher?" And Lanny had some great questioning as to where that book could be referenced to. So I said, I'll have to look into that some more, because I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I know there were plenty of other books at this time, like the Book of Enoch and others that were not part of our canonical Bible today, but the Book of Jasher, I had it a note to look into that some more, but I haven't quite found the answers on that. So Jim Bob, I got some homework for you there.
Yeah, there you go. I'm looking forward to that.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. We'll pick up next week.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thank